All right. Got another week of quarantine HR chats here ready to go. It's April 9th. A little bit of an agenda for the day. We've got our updates based on kind of what's happened since we all got together last week, talking about planning for the return to quote unquote normal working, and some Q&As. So today we've got Iain who's joining us. Helena is on another webinar today. And we've also got Dustin from PaymentEvolution joining us for another weekly webinar here.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Iain, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about Entreflow?
Sure, sounds good. So for those of you who don't know, we're a boutique consulting firm. We help small companies become bigger companies. We help out in terms of accounting and finance, HR, and marketing. So we're a licensed public practice CPA firm. So we can do all the accounting stuff, but we also do CFO services and such. We have an HR and recruitment practice. So that's a lot about team building and culture building, setting those policies and frameworks in place that allow people to thrive and grow and be successful, and then marketing strategy. So we're a small team, and we typically serve small and high growth companies.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that.
Should we give Dustin the opportunity to introduce himself again?
Sure thing, yeah, Dustin.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, guys. My name is Dustin Meneses. I'm actually the senior manager of sales business development. I'm our sales lead here at PaymentEvolution, Canada's most loved cloud payroll provider for also doing payroll payments and benefits, of course. We've been around for about 11 years. I myself with the team, just shy of 3, but have a ton of experience in the fintech space, and now more in the payroll and payments space right now. So a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah. All right. Great. So we're going to kind of jump into kind of recent news here, a little bit about what's been going on in the past week. So first of all, we know we discussed last week about the wage subsidies for businesses being increased to 75%. Sounds like it's still a couple weeks out before this is going to be kind of available to businesses. They have, however, since they announced it last week, I think on Thursday, so on yesterday morning, I believe, they announced that in the original 30% decrease that businesses were supposed to be able to prove in order to qualify for the 75% wage subsidy has now been decreased to 15% for the month of March. And you can also use your numbers from January and February to kind of further prove that there was a 15% decrease in business. It is still capped.
Let me just jump in there because I want to make sure that that's super clear. This was an issue that when it was first announced, it seemed like, and I'm putting my own spin or interpretation on this, it seemed like the federal government had in mind the kind of steady state retail stores who might have lost a lot of business as a result of having to close for COVID. They might have had those kind of companies in mind. When they said, oh, compared to, say, March of last year or same month of last year, we want to see that you've had a significant decrease in revenue. So ourselves at Entreflow, we wrote to the Ministry of Finance. I know some folks at BC Tech and NRC were also collecting feedback and writing to the Ministry of Finance. And to their credit, they seem to have adapted to that because high growth companies, typically they've invested a lot in increasing revenues over the course of the last 12 months. And it seems kind of unfair that they would be not eligible then for participating in the program if they had a sudden and immediate drop in revenues in the last month or so. So now it's looking like they'll consider, is it January and February as well in the calculations, Bronwen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that hopefully should allow some early growth stage companies to participate in this program as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Trudeau's announcement yesterday was, there sounds like there might be even more adjustments kind of made in the coming weeks here because, they did realize that it kind of excluded a bunch of businesses, the original eligibility requirements. So I think there's still more information to come on that about, what exactly are going to be those requirements. And yeah, so they were, we're still a couple weeks out on that. I think things are still changing quite rapidly. So we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on that one. They did also announce that registered, charities and nonprofit organizations are able to either include or exclude any government subsidies that they get during the year while calculating those revenue, doing those revenue calculations. So that's, to try and help with showing the decrease in revenues, just because they see things a little bit differently. They do their revenues a little bit differently for nonprofit and charities. So that's kind of the update on the subsidies there that we have to date. The CRA tax remittance subsidy for business, the 10%, is still available to organizations. So from what we heard last week, though, it sounds like you can't kind of dip into both. So it's kind of one or the other at this point. So this is the payroll remittance subsidy. Okay, so decreasing your payroll remittance by the 10% amount. So is it actually exclusive, or is it just that, if you use the 10%, it reduces the 75% that you're eligible for? Dustin, have you heard anything more about that?
Yeah, we're trying to get some clarity with some of our team on it specifically. From our interpretation, from what we understood, was that they will not be working in tandem, but it's something that's kind of really interesting because for those who wanted originally, who were qualified for the 10 and also maybe qualify for the 75, take the 10. And then make sure that you qualify for the other if it's something that you do qualify for. And my understanding is it's not going to be 85%. Okay, it'll be 10 and 75, one or the other. So it doesn't mean it doesn't limit you for the CERB or the CBA. Those are completely different, but that's what we're understanding. I would probably say talk to your local CPA or accounting company to firm to help you out with that and guide you in the right direction. I think the problem is with a lot of these things as they get announced and they're changing literally almost every week get the right information from the people that are doing it. I happen to be, again, the sales lead of a payroll company that I happen to be very versed in some of the things, but I'm always going to defer to the intellectuals that know that industry most, which are the CPAs and the accounting professionals.
For sure. Thanks. We do have a question here from Stacy who's asking why is the 10% still available? It's still available because there's going to be some organizations who aren't going to be eligible for the 75%, but would be eligible for the 10%. So it's just kind of to, allow those businesses to still receive some subsidy back for there. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind me adding one more thing.
Totally.
The 10% is actually the only part of the subsidy that is going to be made available in your in the payroll solutions innately. So just so you know, there's many out there, including PaymentEvolutions, that will still have the 10% available for the exact reason that you mentioned. It's the only one that needs to be done on their own, and everything else seems to be going to the financial institutions and Service Canada.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, next is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. We kind of touched on that last week. That's the $2,000 a month that anybody who's affected by the COVID, virus, whether it's businesses shut down or having to look after somebody who is ill at this time, you can now apply for the benefit. It is open as of Monday. All the applications can be done online through the My Service Canada account, I believe it's called. And they do have a, depending on what month you're born in during the year, Monday to Thursday is specified for kind of that, for your birth date. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are open to everybody. So just, kind of take a look at that. Oh, and Colin actually applied for it yesterday, and he just joined us here. Colin, do you maybe want to tell us a little bit more about, that application process and anything else that you can kind of give us on an insight there?
Yeah. And before you do, if you don't mind, some people on the webinar might not have met you before, Colin. So Colin joins us from Startups Canada, and we're grateful to have him on the call. Can you say a few words about yourself?
Absolutely, Iain. So yeah, Startup Canada and the community leader and founder of Startup Vancouver is one of the several hats I wear and balls that I juggle, as you very well know, Iain. With Startup Vancouver being the voice for Vancouver entrepreneurs and innovators, startups and early growth companies, being that kind of that hub and connective tissue that brings all of us together, including all the good things you're doing here. And we're happy to support what you're doing here with Entreflow with quarantine chats. I think it's great. Absolutely. So yes, with my business, my sole proprietorship, that is based on, well, really events-based, along with what we do with Startup Vancouver. And as we know, live events right now have come to a bit of a halt. Mm-hmm. So that is why with Startup Vancouver, we are supporting and promoting all the good things you're doing and others are doing within our community. And then in May, or a little bit after that, we're going to be creating our own events online to build that community. But in the meantime, I did apply. So to answer that, it was very, very simple. My birthday's in September, so that's why I did it on the Wednesday. And seriously, it took me 3 minutes. On CRA, I already had what I do with my bank, in this case with Royal Bank, and all banks are doing this, just to one click with your bank online, very simple to then notify CRA for this emergency response fund that you're going to apply for that. But I already had set up with my account already with CRA. So it was very easy. Seriously, it was like 3 steps. Just had to say, yes, I do qualify for this, and it didn't grind me down saying, well, you only qualify, not the $2,000 of this, you qualify for like half of it or a third of it. It's like, nope, nice and simple. $2,000, said it's going to be 3 business days. It'll has the account already attached to where the money's going to go. So it's digital, very simple. And what I believe they did this period is it was for one of the criteria was that I haven't generated any revenue or income in 14 working days, right? So, or maybe 14 days, 2 weeks, and it actually gives you the period. And my understanding, what I applied for yesterday was just that one period. So after those 14 days, I'm assuming we need to apply again and apply again. I can't recall, and you guys may know this because you've been following this closer than I have, of how long. I don't know if it's over a 2 or a 3 or a 4 month period or how many blocks there are, but I would need to apply every single time. So like I said, within seriously 90 seconds of that experience, from getting on CRA to them saying the $2,000 is going to be in my account in 3 days.
Awesome.
That's good to hear. We've had a couple other people on the chat say that they've done the same. So it's My CRA is the website that you want to go to. If you're part of EI already, probably most people on this chat are not, but you can go to Service Canada instead, but My CRA. And then like Colin said, if you have your direct deposit set up in there, that's going to be make things very easy.
Yeah, absolutely. They have also said that, if you are a business owner who's receiving dividends instead of kind of a paycheck, and you had $5,000 of dividends in 2019, that also qualifies you for the CERB. So that's just something to keep in mind. And also that income doesn't have to be made in Canada. You just have to be Canadian resident currently in order to kind of qualify for that as well. And for any students or foreign workers that are here in Canada currently, they are also able to apply for the CERB as long as they have a Canadian social insurance number. So, they've opened this up to, I feel, a good number of people and hopefully able to support them. The other one is the Canada Emergency Business Account, to be available today is what we've heard. And that is done through your bank. So if you want to reach out to an advisor there, they'll be able to help you out with that. But I've heard that they're supposed to be kind of available to start taking those applications today. So maybe if you haven't reached out to your financial advisor quite yet, might be a good day to do it. Another thing that they rolled out is the Canada Summer Jobs, which is a program from previously, but they are going to be covering the cost of bringing on a student 100%. They've also extended the period into the winter time, as they realize that there may be some students who are going to be staying around longer working in jobs. So, if you've got some openings that you maybe need some, quick admin help, or you're a product company that's looking to do home deliveries at this time, it might be a good opportunity to hire a student and help them out over the summer. And there was also promise that there's more support to come for freelancers, workers with reduced hours, seniors, and self-employed workers as well. What that benefit exactly is going to be is unsure at this moment, but we're kind of keeping our eye out for that one. Because currently, we have a question here from William asking about working some part-time with the CERB. No, you are not able to work the idea is that you have no income at all during the period in order to be eligible for the CERB. So unfortunately that's what's come out at this point. So that's why they're looking into a benefit for people who have had their hours reduced to maybe, I think I heard under 10 hours a week. But we'll see what comes there. Anything that anybody wanted to add to any of this?
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, I was going to add a quick question regarding SEBA. I'm very interested in that. Do we actually have a link yet, or is that something they're going to be setting up in the next little while? You said it's available today.
Yeah. So that's the one that's available through your commercial bank. So if you're, I think you said RBC, Colin. So if you're with RBC, you should be able to go to RBC's website, and they'll probably have a link on online banking about the CEBA and how to apply to it through RBC. Same goes for Van City, CIBC, BMO, all the commercial banks should have this. But the speed at which they get it up there and start answering applications really just depends on which institution you're with. So good luck.
Yeah, I know that last week we had spoken to somebody on the chat that said that they had already reached out to their financial advisor and were put on kind of like a list at the bank for when this was going to become available. And hopefully they'll start working through that list now. If it is available, I haven't actually heard whether or not this is actually kicked off, but I think most banks, from what I've seen, have kind of a Q&A or a frequently asked questions section where they've kind of provided information about what this Canadian Emergency Business Account process is going to look like.
And
William,
go ahead. Thanks, William. Yeah, to clarify, yes, the CEBA is the 40K loan. I don't know, lots of acronyms being thrown around here. The 10%, the 75%, the 40K, the 2K, there's so many of those. So thanks for keeping us all on top of that.
And this is the one where, it's 40K that is going to be available to businesses. And you have up until December 31st of 2022 to pay it all back in full to receive a 25% grace on the amount. So, if it's $40,000 that you are able to get a loan on, you don't have to pay back 10,000 of that if you pay in full by December 31st of 2022. It's also lower. I think I read somewhere it was a 5% interest rate after that. I would just confirm though with your financial or your advisor at the bank, your bank advisor, and they should have more information on that process there.
I had a question regarding Canada Summer Jobs. I think that's very helpful for a lot of our early growth and startup companies out there. I know when I put on that other hat, in that entrepreneurship world of what we're building in the tech space and support, that could be really handy. Do we know, is there a link yet for that? Is there a program in place, or is that just an idea that with more information coming, or what do you know on that yet in Canada Summer Jobs?
Yeah, great question. From what I know, this is a program that was previously available with a lower subsidy amount on the wages for the students, but they've upped the kind of the coverage of the wages to 100% return. So I believe that there's information on the Government of Canada website, but we can follow up with a link there for anybody who's interested in that to get more information there.
Okay. And if I can, just to follow up on that,
yeah.
I think you're familiar with New Ventures BC and Angie, what they're doing over there, that they have the High Risk Student ISI program, which is up to $10,000 a year for 2 students, meaning if you pay over the summer, you have 2 students and it's $5,000, you pay them $10,000 each, you'll get half of that covered. And and they say their grants, that is a full-on grant, is stackable with others. So there's a good possibility that you can combine that with the Canada Summer Jobs with that too. I don't want to speak out of turn, I'm not an expert, but it may even be, you guys may want to reach out to Angie and perhaps even encourage her to come on your next Tuesday show, and or even the Thursday, and talk about that too, because I think she can provide some really great insights on that program too.
For sure.
Yeah, just quick notes on it. Dates here. Applications are open. Jobs should start between May 11th and July 20th, and end sometime towards the end of August. And so you can apply online for it. So we'll get the link out to everybody after this webinar is done.
Yeah, awesome. And we just have a note here, sorry, and I did forget to mention this, the CEBA is available to anybody whose payroll was between 50,000 and $1 million in 2019. So that's just one kind of eligibility requirement there. So, talk to your accountants, talk to your payroll provider, and so you can see kind of what your payroll amounts were for last year to see if you can apply for that. Okay.
Not to give Entreflow too much of a plug here, but let's say myself with my business, and we don't have any staff yet. I know that doesn't qualify for a CEBA here, but if we need to set up our first employee or set up payroll, is that something as a service that you're able to help all those early growth companies with?
Totally, yeah. So we actually, set up, we do payroll implementations and payroll setups for companies that are new to coming on to payroll. We use our lovely friends at PaymentEvolution to kind of get them set up there. And, for some of our clients, we do run payroll for them, or we can do a payroll kind of handoff if you have somebody internally who's willing to do that. But yeah, we've definitely done that before.
Excellent. And what other people probably know about Shred and all that good stuff, with people working in technical R&D. Are you connected with anybody out there, the way that you've set things up, even with your auditing or tracking, that makes it easy to provide that information for Shred?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do with Shred is as follows. We understand the basics of the Shred program and some of the other government programs for supporting R&D. And almost all of them require that you're tracking time and expenses into the project. So our lens on this is to set up your fintech stack to track that appropriately. So all the way through maybe a time tracking or project management solution, data flowing then into payroll and into your accounting system, so that then it becomes easy to pull reports and submit filings. We do year-end tax for so T2 corporate filings, and for sole props, the T1 for businesses. Shred is part of that year-end filing, but it's something that requires a bit of special expertise. So we've got a couple of people in our network that we always refer to for companies who are looking for shred claims. Even if it's not coming close to your year end, it's really a good idea to get in touch with us or them early on, so that we can get things set up and it becomes an easy thing. A lot of these guys, they will do a success-based fee. So say you claimed $100,000 of shred. If you wouldn't pay anything unless you actually got money back from the government. So it's potentially a nice option for companies who are actively engaged in R&D right now, to get some money, some cash into their businesses right now. So reach out to us if you need some more help with that.
For sure.
I think we'll have a chat about that on the side, about some of the other things I'm working on, and then I can be your poster boy, your case study that we can tell Startup Vancouver people about.
Awesome.
Sounds good, Colin.
Great. Okay, so I just wanted to open up the floor now to anybody on our attendees here. If there was any questions that you guys have kind of about the recent news or anything else that you've heard that maybe you wanted to ask. So there is a Q&A button that you can click, as well as if you wanted to raise your hand through Zoom, we can have our host here open up your mic so that you can ask any questions. So I will open the floor up to our attendees or our panelists if anybody has any questions at this time.
I'll kick things off because
Sure.
It's a question I heard from a client who I'll keep anonymous at this moment. And it was with regards to how all this fits together. So there, a small team, about 10 people. There has been a drop in the workload for their team, and some of them are now working virtually. So he was kind of wondering, well, what do I do? Should I lay some people off? Should I just hold out for the 75% subsidy and keep them all employed, or is there a third option? I know a lot of people are thinking about this kind of thing, and I proposed another option to him, which was you might want to consider reducing hours for some of these folks.
Yep.
Because you can do that immediately, and then they can apply for EI for the difference, if I understand things correctly. So that was one option that we talked about, but I think they might be changing that. So I don't know, Bronwen, can you jump in and maybe give your perspective on what this business owner might want to think about doing?
Sure. So it's really going to come down to, I guess, cash flow situation and how long you can kind of foresee being able to bring your team on, pay their full-time wages. If it's a situation where, you're maybe in a little bit of a good situation where you're able to keep people on maybe for the next couple of weeks and wait out that 75% wage subsidy, that's definitely I think maybe the best option. There's always little projects, I'm sure, that need to be done around the office that maybe even if they're not doing their regular job, that there might be something that they can be working on, such as outlining processes internally, getting started on some HR type work, thinking about what recruitment might need to be coming down the line. There's things that can be worked on, even if your workload has been reduced a little bit. Another option is to reduce everybody's hours. And from what I know right now, you can do the work sharing program. There's information about that on the Government of Canada website as well. And that you kind of have to make everybody into a unit and reduce everybody's hours in that unit by the same amount. So if you have a whole bunch of people that are, maybe a big sales team, you can actually reduce the whole sales team's hours by 10 hours, let's say a week, and they can receive then a top up from the government and through the EI program, and then they can also be receiving money from the company as well. So that's potentially another option. Unfortunately, the third option is to, if you need to do a temporary layoff for some of the employees currently, they would then be eligible for the CERB. And, maybe at this time that might be the best option for your company. But those are kind of the three options that I see at this point.
Okay.
But it's, depends on the company.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
It looks like we got a question in from the the chat.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to unmute and chat through this, but I can read it out. So if a business owner contracts their own services to their corporation, would they be eligible for CERB if they've invoiced 5K or greater? So yeah, I know a lot of business owners have very different ways that they take compensation from their company. It could be that they're on salary, it could be that they're on dividends, or just do shareholder loans in and out and then settle it up at the end of the year, or take a management fee, a contract. So do all of those things help us qualify?
From what I understand, as long as you can prove that you have some sort of income that you would be, receiving a T4 or a T4E or a T5, I believe is the contractor one, that that you can say that you've received over $5,000 of income last year. I believe that should qualify you. As for, management fees and shareholder loan, that I'm not 100% sure on. That might have to be a question back to, unfortunately, to the government there, just to see exactly. I know dividends, they have said, yes, you qualify, but otherwise, I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a T4 is your employment income.
Yeah.
T4A contractor income.
Yes.
And T5 is your dividends.
Right.
That you might have earned. Okay. So if you've got one of those, stating that you had some income, then chances are you're going to be okay for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's also, if contract work is invoiced for times that a corporation can support it, would one still be eligible?
Yes, I think you'd be eligible. This is kind of the thing about when you're recognizing revenue. So if you are earning in a period, then you are earning. If the deal is that you're working in a different time frame, or the structure of your contract is different, then you don't have to invoice monthly if, say, you didn't do work in that month. You could invoice the corporation for the month that you did work in the following month. So that still makes sense.
Okay. We have another question here. If you're eligible for EI, can you rather select to apply for the CERB? So right now, unless you are laid off for reasons, contract ending, or any other reason other than COVID related layoffs, or you're sick, as of right now, you have to apply for the CERB. If your contract, if your contract worker and your contracts come to an end, you are able to apply still for regular benefits through EI, but they are pushing as many people as possible to go through the CERB at this point, especially for anything that's kind of COVID related. Yeah. Any other questions that we have out there? Panelists, any questions?
I think we had a couple of inquiries from people who are close to the line, but not. Here it just came up on the chat. Yeah, so if a company had less than 50K of payroll, then what could be done? So it seems that you'd not be eligible for the CEBA if you had less than 50K of payroll. So that's not going to be useful. Some people are just below that line, and that's very frustrating for them. I guess maybe just being really clear with your accountants on what was the exact payroll number. That can be very important to do. So I think that's going to be a one-on-one conversation. And just make sure that everything was stated as employment income, so that you have the best chance of being of hitting that 50K number if you're just under. So just double checking everything, I think would be the thing.
There's also the
else?
BDC and EDC loans that you could try for as well. I know we talked about them a couple weeks ago, and we can send out the links again for those, because I'm off the top of my head can't remember what the requirements are for that one. But that might be something, again, you would go through your bank to talk about those loans, and you might have, there might be a chance that you can get some support there versus the business account, the emergency business account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have another question about business rent at this point. Not that I have seen. I know that there are, a few spaces that are, maybe reducing their rent costs for the month, especially, I know our virtual working space has given a little bit of a discount because most people aren't in the offices right now. But does anybody else know about business rent at this point and support for businesses who are paying rent?
Yeah, there's been no update really. I know that one was sort of a contentious issue with landlords and such.
Mm-hmm.
I know some landlords were able to give discounts off rent to their tenants, and that's really nice. So if they have a business tenant in a commercial space, we're seeing some of that happen. And there was this suggestion that there'd be a reduction in taxes owed by landlords, or some kind of benefit to them that they could then pass on to their tenants, and that seems to be in public debate at this point. So I'd imagine similar to how the Ministry of Finance responded when folks like ourselves raised the issue with the 30% revenue
Mm-hmm.
reduction, disqualifying people unfairly. Probably the Ministry of Finance is going to listen to what the public is saying about this rent, supporting rent, and how that's going to be rolled out. So we're looking for news on that soon.
For sure. Okay. Oh, one more. I've got another question here. Anything for property taxes in July?
Yeah, same answer. Don't know yet.
I think that'll probably come closer to potentially, just due to the fact that, we're still in April and times are still a little uncertain with where we're going to be at that time. It's, things could change very quickly, or they could, continue this way for quite some time still. So, lots of uncertainty around what the summer's going to bring for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, Bronwen, you had a few more slides that you wanted us to get to. So why don't we do that? Keep typing chats or questions into the Q&A, and we'll see if we can get to them if we can. I think just in summary, there's going to be a lot more questions. So feel free to reach out to us or your accountant. It's very important just to have a short-term plan and a long-term plan right now. So working through that with somebody is the best way to do it. And figure out what your options and scenarios are. Keep those questions coming as Bronwen takes us through the next little bit here.
For sure. Yeah. So today I wanted to touch on a little bit, that uncertainty piece and kind of planning for the new normal. I think it's become apparent, I think a lot of people are realizing that we're not really going to be going back to what we know as normal. There's going to be a lot of changes in how businesses are run, how teams are going to be working, and after we've kind of been able to lift from this social distancing and isolation type life that we're living in right now. So a couple things that I wanted to kind of bring to mind is kind of what to start planning for. So like I mentioned before, if you've got some downtime right now, it might be a good time to start thinking about, how this COVID has affected your business currently, and where you kind of want to see it go, once you're able to start bringing the team back on a little bit more. So thinking about your team, where are they going to work? If you've had to move your team virtually, are you going to continue that virtual type atmosphere? Are you going to want everybody to start coming back into the office more? Does your team want to start coming back into the office, or are they totally loving virtual working? So just kind of pulse checking there. I think that we're going to see a lot of people wanting to go back to the office right off the bat, because they're going to want to see their teammates again, be close to another person again, and then potentially are going to be like, yeah, you know what, I actually really did like that virtual working. So how can we make this position continue down that path? Will you need to hire more? So, I've had a lot of conversations lately about recruitment and what I think it's going to look like in the coming months. And, there's my thoughts around it is, I think that if you are laying people off, you should not be expecting that everybody's going to come back when you start to bring them back on. You might have people who, realize they really didn't like the position that they were in, and they might be, seeing this as an opportunity to find a new position now that, they've been laid off. They might realize that the industry that they're working in isn't what they were hoping for themselves. They've probably had a lot of time to self-reflect right now, and maybe they'll be thinking about going back to school or switching jobs. So, think about that. Don't expect that, necessarily everybody's going to come back, and not that everybody's going to come back at the same time as well. You might have to kind of stagger your team returning from layoffs. So how are you going to prepare for that? Who do you bring back when? Starting to think about that. What structures are you going to continue with? Did you implement town hall meetings? Did you implement one-on-ones or daily scrums in the morning that you're really loving? And how can you continue to have that when you're kind of returning to full force work? And what will your team's new day look like? Their new day today? Are they, did they take something on during this time that they're really awesome at, that you maybe want to change them in the organization to continue kind of being a rock star? Or have they brought up like, hey, I'd really like to go back to school for digital marketing work, because I've seen what you guys did during this time, and I think that's super cool, and I'd love to get into it. And how can you kind of support your team with continuing to be rock stars when things are kind of back to full force? Anybody from the panelists, you have anything to add here?
I think that there's going to be a lot of great things that the teams, like these businesses, can do to actually help themselves and help their teams out more. For those who are not laying off or their employees right now, we're seeing, just because we're in that space with HR and payroll, we're seeing a lot of businesses implement that are okay, that have not shut down, implement like wage freezes across the board, and being able to provide a little bit more security financially for the businesses, especially as maybe people are thinking about annual reviews after Q1. And so this is very normal. It's something that you guys have to, that most should take in consideration. What does that structure look like going forward? Like you said, Bronwen, should we be hiring everybody back immediately? If they are, it might be smart to stagger it in stages. Yeah, absolutely. What does that new day look like? And for those who are not super affected, like many fully remote teams that seem to be in a very profitable standpoint right now, for those companies that are, it really is a opportunity for people to hire some really great talent now too. Yeah. So the other side of that sword is something very positive, where people are being laid off. That's fine, but if they are looking, if they're willing to be to find another solution, there are going to be a lot of people that are looking. PaymentEvolution is one of them. We're lucky to be in a scenario where we are looking, but at the end of the day, it depends on what have we planned, what are we starting to plan, what do we continue to do. And I would definitely have them reach out to like an HR specialist like yourself or your team to be able to help position it a little bit better for themselves.
For sure. Yeah. So I actually had some things that I thought about like what you can get into place now to prepare for your next step in all of this. So, like you said, performance review process, that's something that if you don't kind of have in place right now, or right now it might be a good time to start thinking about what you want that to look like. Try it out virtually for one time, just to see. It's a great time to kind of review how things are going, especially with the team, and just kind of checking in and seeing how they're doing, and without that immediate feedback that generally happens when you're sitting next to somebody every day, the employees might be a little bit lost on how are they doing well, could they be doing better, where's their growth looking, so now is a really good time to kind of have those conversations with your team, just to be able to provide that feedback to them. Employee
and of course, like you said, that's tied in with salary reviews as well.
Yeah,
most often. So that's going to be a sensitive topic right now for many businesses. So having that codified is, I think, I agree, it's a really good idea to get in place now.
Yeah, and I think that most employees are fairly understanding about the situation, and it won't come to a surprise to them to say, listen, we're going to do these performance reviews, and we might have to have salary conversations at another time. We appreciate all the work that you're doing right now, and we're going to take this into consideration later, and maybe give away a free vacation day or something instead that they can take later, that it doesn't really have a huge impact on the business right at this moment, but is still a little bit of an incentive to your employees, that they're like, yeah, cool, okay, I get 16 or 11 business or vacation days instead of my 10 or 15, depending on what's normal for your organization. Another thing would be to just ensure that your employee and contractor contracts are up to date and relevant and in place. We have conversations a lot of time where we'll ask, okay, well, what does your employee contract say? And organizations are coming back with, we don't have any. It really is a protection for your organization as well as the employees and your contractors. So I think if you don't have something in place right now, think about it. It's good. It kind of goes hand in hand with your policy handbook, which is also a good thing to be reviewing or creating at this time, just so that you do have, like we've said in previous webinars, you've got your virtual working related policies in there, and processes, and making adjustments and getting yourself ready for that. One-on-one.
So Bronwen, if I wanted to put something in place, if I was a business owner, I wanted to put something in place for say hours of working, or people being on standby, or just making sure that they're available for work if it comes up. Maybe there's not something that they need to be doing right now, but that could happen in a moment's notice. You want them to be available, or maybe it's just hey, we're all working online, and so there's new sort of expectations. Or where do these sorts of things fit into the contract, into the handbook? What's the structure there, and what should we know?
Yeah, so those would be going into your policy handbooks or employee handbooks, and outlining, maybe the team has to be available from 8 to 5, but they're allowed to work kind of their 8 hours within that time. Or if you do have people that are on standby shifts, ensuring that it's outlined that they have to be ready and willing to show up to a job at a moment's notice. So outlining maybe 9 o'clock Baileys and coffee isn't the greatest idea when you're on standby, just, making sure that you're ready. So that's definitely something that you would be putting into your policy handbooks versus the contracts. The general rule of thumb is if it's something that could be or needed to be easily changed in the future, you want to put that into your policy handbook. More, legal sounding, concrete type things are included in the contract. So that's, no non-competes, non-disclosures, and working location somewhat can be included in your contracts, but that's generally things that aren't going to change through the lifetime of the employee working with you. That's where those kind of live.
Okay, got it. And do you need an employment lawyer to review your handbook, or just the contract, or both? What's the best practice there?
Best practice would be to have them review both. But I would say the most important one would be your contracts. Definitely to have that reviewed by an employment lawyer, just to ensure that, there's no little loopholes or something missing from the contracts. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that actually, I just reminded myself, we're trying to get an employment lawyer on this session, but he had to go to court. So he's going to try and come next week to answer all your questions about employment law. If you're dealing with potential layoffs or hours reductions or things like that. He'd hopefully be a great resource for us. So I'm hoping he'll join us next week. Carry on, Bronwen.
Okay, great. So the other items that, that I was thinking that you should be able to get into place right now would be some, we talked about one-on-one and team meeting structure. We just think they're great. And if you're not doing it already, then maybe you should start trying it out, even if it's a quick 15-minute meeting in the morning or a quick call with your team for a little bit of a one-on-one, just to, again, check in on them, see how they're doing. And just, that's, I think, very important. There's also some systems that you could be looking at putting into place right now. So some HRIS, so HR softwares and systems that you could be putting into place that'll help with kind of request for time off processes, and those performance reviews can be kind of kept in there, as well as just a good place for all of your employee documentation to be held. And some of them, will plug into different payroll softwares or time tracking softwares. They're pretty cool little systems out there that you can, you don't have to spend a huge amount of money on those. But there's some, basic ones, there's some heavy duty ones. I think that they're pretty cool. They're a little bit of a secret love of mine that I always am looking into different HRIS softwares right now.
What Bronwen said to me before is that sometimes this is, the software itself becomes the focal point for a project to just get everything organized. And so it's a nice anchor for that kind of thing. And it's something that many companies don't have all this stuff in place. And so focusing there kind of makes sure that you're ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, for sure. And, applicant tracking systems will be helpful for if you're going to have, or you're planning on doing a huge hiring sprint, once you're ready to start bringing team members back on. Some of the HRIS softwares have applicant tracking systems in them, but there's also some kind of standalone systems that you could be using right now. Request for time off, RTO is request for time off process. So again, that kind of ties into HRIS softwares. If your team's at a point where, maybe you're only 3 or 4 employees, you may not need to bring in HR software quite yet. So you could be thinking about, okay, like how is my team requesting for time off right now? As we talked about last week, we are expecting for there to be a increase in vacation requests. Maybe not immediately after we're kind of going back to the office situation, but within a couple months, especially probably around Christmas time, I think that there will be a lot of people taking vacation. So, do you have the right process in place? Another system that you can be thinking about right now is learning management systems. So again, if your team's got some downtime, maybe you could be using that time to have them videotaping processes. We've got lots of software that we use internally, and putting together one-pagers and quick little videos on how to use Google Drive for the way that your company uses it. That might be a good opportunity to kind of put something like that in place, so that when you're doing your onboarding with new team members coming on, they're able to watch videos and kind of get onboarded that way. And last one I have here is, ties back into all of our recruitment talk that we've done, is current and future state org charts. So again, what do you want your team to look like at the end of this year, at the end of 2021? Because of the changes, it may look different than what you had originally planned or originally were thinking. So now might be a good time to kind of review what you had thought about, or put something in place to kind of get thinking about that. We've been in kind of this social distancing scenario for almost a month now, and I think it's a good time. I think some of the initial panic has subsided a little bit, so now it's time to start thinking about the positive and the future thinking items to get ready for what's to come.
That's a really good point, Bronwen. I think thinking about just how things feel out there, initial panic subsided. We've talked in the last couple of weeks about everyone trying to get used to this new way of working. I'm trying to characterize it in a few different phases. So 1, panic. 2, business owners pivot. 3, employees pivot. So I think that's kind of how it's going to play out. If I'm trying to look into the crystal ball, I expect that most business owners and leaders are already making their pivots and changes, making big decisions about how to handle the new financial future for the company, that maybe new lines of business that they're going to pursue, and maybe they're making decisions about potential layoffs or organization changes, as you're alluding to here, changing the org chart. And that can run, these pivots can run for a little bit with the existing team, but 2 things are going to happen. 1, to make the pivot successful, the employers are going to know that they need to bring on other talent to take care of the certain critical things for the new strategic direction that weren't necessary before. And 2 is, I think that after the company's pivot, is that employees are going to see what the new situation is looking like, and if that feels right for them, and then plan on making their own changes. So I think that employers need to not go into these pivots assuming that their team is going to come back if they've laid them off. They're not assuming that their team, if they didn't lay them off, that their team is going to be happy to move in the same direction after everything has changed. They might have personal circumstances that have come up for them, or they might think that the way the company is going is not a fit for their long-term career. And so I think we can expect a lot of movement initiated by employees too. And so it would be a mistake to be caught flat-footed by that. And I think thinking ahead on future state org chart and thinking about hiring plans, it feels early right now, but these are things that take quite a long time to do. So it makes sense to do the thinking now.
For sure.
There we go. I'll get off my soapbox and let you finish talking.
No, I think that was all I wanted to add at this point. I know we have a couple minutes left here, so maybe I wanted to move to if our panelists had anything else that they wanted to add, or any questions from our audience here. Again, there's the Q&A section if you guys wanted to just pop any questions into there, or I believe that you can raise your hand and we can open your mic if you wanted to chat.
Yeah, why don't we just open all the mics right now?
Sure.
And then that way, if anyone, you can just unmute yourself if you want to just chat. Sometimes that's nicer. And while Aislinn's doing that for us, there was one other chat that came through, which was about a scenario for a company that is a corporation, has one owner, substantially reduced revenue, and the corporation is operating at a loss, so the owner can't afford to pay him or herself a salary anymore. So what are the options there? I tried to answer that on the chat while you were talking, and what I came up with is potentially the owner could, if they were on payroll, lay themselves off, and then that would be there you go. Then you would be eligible to apply for CERB or EI. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, and actually, maybe Colin, did you have to lay yourself off to apply for your CERB, or how did you go about doing that?
I didn't. Well, being a sole proprietor under what I applied through, it's as simple as now I'm not generating any revenue. I will be actually invoicing, either through kind of the multi-channels that I have, whether it's the work I do to the consultants draw down from Startup Vancouver, the value I add there, or even my other business, even some of the teaching I do at Global Startup School, for example, because that's not going to continue right now until we kind of figure out that model. So the short answer is no, I didn't lay myself off. I don't have a payroll. I've never done that. Perhaps I'll talk to you guys again. Maybe I should in the future. It makes no sense. When we come out the other side, very quickly on this. But the short answer is no, I did not, as far as the criteria that they had. And they are, once again, with CRA, they do lay it out very clearly on there, whether you qualify or not. And it's nice the way they put it too, in the sense they're not threatening. It's saying if you don't qualify and you're committing a fraudulent act, it's saying, you know what, if it turns out that you don't, or you apply for it and you figure afterwards you don't, you would just have to pay some of that back. And also, by the way, that $2,000 every single time is taxable income. That's something people need to know.
Great. Yes. Thank you for adding that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions that we've got from our attendees here?
I think that's potentially it.
Okay.
Well, why don't we wrap up here? And I just want to say thank you for everyone who continues to come and participate as panelists and as audience members.
Mm-hmm.
And also a special shout out to everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live. We get hundreds of people watching the Facebook Live feed, and so appreciate you guys too. It would be great to have you on if you so you can submit questions and we can answer them too.
Mm-hmm.
Just look out for our posts that are all over social media on how to join us directly on Zoom. Next week, we are going to be continuing on with our HR and our finance chats. We have some special guests coming in. A fellow from Ashdown Capital. His name is Kern, and so he's really versed in commercial banking, applying for funding through those routes. So if that's something that you're interested in, then he can give us the lay of the land on what the commercial banks are thinking, which is applicable for all these programs too.
Mm-hmm.
Keith from Spring Activator has said that he's hoping to join us again as well. And like I mentioned before, the employment lawyer that we were hoping to get on this call is planning on attending on Thursday for next week. So lots of good stuff, lots of good people, along with our regular guest stars, Dustin and Colin. We're hoping you're going to have you back as well. If you guys need anything, our contact information is up on the screen. Feel free to reach out to any of us. We're doing our best to help everybody out. If you've got a quick question, by all means, even if you're not a direct client of ours, reach out. We'll see what we can do to help. And if it's something that's really relevant or applicable to everybody, we'll try and bring it up on the HR chats for next time round. If you have a topic that you want discussed next time, please email Bronwen or myself or Helena, and we'll make sure that we talk about it on the next quarantine chat.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys are looking for or have questions around, or something you'd like to hear on the HR land. So yeah, that'd be great.
We do post these recordings of these sessions. So if you just go to our website under Business Insights, you'll see the whole list of them. And our social media posts link back to the original post that has the joining instructions and links to all the recordings. So it's a great way if you want to share those things around, feel free to do so. And happy to have you on for next time around.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks guys. Hope everybody has a good day.
Thank you, everyone.